blogger and commentator for Astral Media. So, Michael, PQ leader Pauline Marois has backtracked on her advice to conservative sovereigntists to vote elsewhere if they can't accept her party's progressive platform. Will this hurt her at the polls?
Absolutely. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, when you sort of, you see Pauline Marois as this person who wants to encompass Quebec society, take all Quebecers and say, listen, we're trying to take a party and represent you within that party. When you start saying, I mean, the question that was asked by the reporter who said, what do you have to say to Quebec sovereignists who are conservative? What happens? Will you take them in within your party? And she outright said, you know what? There are two conservative choices for Quebecers on election day. It's Jean Charest's Liberal Party, or it's François Legault's CAQ. You have a choice there. There's nothing more. There's nothing else. You make the decision now. Then she retracted the statement by saying, well, you know what? I thought they were talking about federalists, conservative federalists, people who would vote for Stephen Harper. That was not the question. She was asked it twice. This will hurt her. When you come out and when you say outright and out for it that you're not going to be voting, you don't want a certain group in the population to vote for you. I mean, it's a very strong, very, very strong message, and I think it's going to hurt her, absolutely.
What about former PQ Premier Jacques Parizeau? He's thrown his support behind the hardline sovereigntist party, Option Nationale. Does this surprise you?
It surprised me, yes it did, because, you look at Mr. Parizeau, he was the leader of the Parti Québécois. He was premier of the Parti Québécois of Quebec when the referendum took place in 1995. He lost that night, and who did he blame on that loss? He blamed it on money and the ethnic vote. Sort of the same message that Madame Marois has taken with her charter of secularism, the charter that she said she would propose upon public workers within Quebec, saying that you can't wear a cross that's too big around your neck, you can't wear a Star of David, you can't wear a kippa if you're a public service worker, if you're a public servant to the Quebec government. What does that say about her? So I think, when it comes to Mr. Parizeau supporting somebody like Mr. Jean-Martin Aussan of Option Nationale, a very small voter base within their party, not a lot of popularity across the province. I think what it says about Mr. Parizeau is that he doesn't have confidence in Madame Marois to lead Quebec into another referendum, nor lead Quebec as a nation if they did win a referendum. So that's what it comes down to.
But is it possible that this endorsement will split the sovereigntist vote even further?
No, because you're not going to see Mr. Aussan garner any support from this. A $200 check that Mr. Parizeau signed, that he donated to the Option Nationale, it's meaningless. It says nothing to Quebecers. What it does say is that, I mean, look at Mr. Parizeau. He wasn't even open about saying that he endorsed Jean-Martin Aussan's Option Nationale. This is a very small party in comparison to the Parti Québécois, the main separatist party in Quebec. So when it comes down to it, I mean, people see this and they're saying, well, it's not like it's going to be a major game changer at this part in the race. I mean, we're a week away from election. People are not going to, a week away from voting, people are not going to switch their vote from the Parti Québécois all the way to Option Nationale, this new party with one representative in the National Assembly.
Okay, so one thing that we've been talking a lot today is school. School is back in session, almost at least. Classes are just starting at Quebec universities, and student protests have already caused disruption. So what does this mean for Charest?
It helps them. It helps them a lot because you see instability within the province, and the reason why you see instability is because the students are protesting against Mr. Charest like they have been for the past 6 or 7 months now. And, I mean, there was a bit of a pause during the summertime, during the elections. You go back to the former head of La Classe, which is the largest student union, having said, we want people to be more reserved during the election period because we don't want to start causing the civil unrest within Quebec, because it would make our group, our student movements look bad. It would make us look like we're trying to stir up problems. And, I mean, they are, let's be honest here. When it comes down to it is that class is now back in session in Quebec, most of Quebec for that matter. And you see the students, charging it up again and saying, we're going to go after Charest, we're going to go into the classes, we're going to storm into the classes and disrupt, the school year. Right before an election time, that does not look good on your part, and it helps the Premier Jean Charest, because it makes him look like the person who's in control of the situation, that's able to, say, what, there's people making disruptions. I'm the person who will be able to come back and, as leader of the province, and say to the students, no, we're not going to be negotiating with you if you're going to be taking such a ruthless policy when it comes to interfering on the access of education for students at schools.
Michael, before we lose you, I just have to ask, because advanced polling has started, so which party, if any, will benefit from a high voter turnout during advanced polling?
Well, we saw yesterday in Laval des Rapides, which is just north of Montreal, we saw a very, very high voter turnout. It took 40 minutes for some people to vote in advance polling, not regular day polling, voting rather. So in advance voting, it took 40 minutes or so. When you see high voter turnout, you have to ask yourself, who are these people who are going out there? And from my perspective, I would say it's older voters who are doing this because older voters are much more likely to vote and vote early for that matter. You don't see younger people voting, especially in advance polling. It's been the voting rate for people under the age of 25 in Quebec has been absolutely atrocious. And I'd also say on top of that, maybe you have to also look at the person who's running it as the Parti Québécois representative candidate. In Laval des Rapides, it is, of course, Léo Bureau-Blouin. He was the leader of the FEC Students' Union, which is it's a federal union across Quebec, and they were touting themselves as against Charest across this whole time. What Léo is now doing, he's now running as a member of the PQ, and I think it might just say that a lot of people want to surround themselves around Léo Bureau-Blouin. So it could be two possibilities. Either it's very good for the Liberals because you have older people going out to vote, or it's good for Léo Bureau-Blouin, who's looked upon as a star candidate in this race.
Michael Forian is a blogger and commentator for Astral Media. Thanks so much.